For decades, Canada's energy sector was deeply tied to the United States, with the vast majority of its oil and gas exports heading directly south of the border. This relationship shaped not only the Canadian economy, but also its political and trade strategies, as the US became both its largest customer and its most influential partner. The infrastructure, from sprawling oil fields in Alberta to the intricate network of pipelines, was designed with this singular market in mind. With most of its oil flowing south, Canada enjoyed decades of relative stability and prosperity, relying on the US market to absorb its vast energy output. This close connection fostered economic growth and job creation across the country, especially in energy-rich provinces. However, what was once considered a strength has increasingly become a liability. Trade disputes, shifting political winds, and growing uncertainty have exposed the risks of putting so many eggs in one basket. Canadian energy executives and policymakers have grown concerned about the nation's vulnerability to decisions made in Washington. Recent U.S. protectionist policies, especially under former President Trump, have forced Canada to rethink its strategy. The abrupt cancellation of major pipeline projects and the imposition of new regulations highlighted just how quickly access to the U.S. market could be restricted or threatened. The threat of tariffs on Canadian oil, combined with the unpredictability of U.S. trade policy, has made diversification not just a goal, but an urgent necessity. Protests and industry pushback have underscored the stakes for Canadian workers and businesses. In response, Canada is now turning to Asia's booming economies, seeking new buyers to reduce its vulnerability. Countries like China, India, and Japan represent massive, fast-growing markets with an insatiable demand for energy. By building new export routes and forging business relationships, Canada hopes to tap into this global opportunity. This pivot isn't just about finding new markets. It's a fundamental shift in Canada's global role. By expanding its reach, Canada is positioning itself as a key player in the international energy landscape, no longer defined solely by its relationship with the United States. By building new partnerships, especially with China, Canada aims to secure its economic future and assert its independence. These agreements are about more than just oil. They represent a broader commitment to economic resilience and global engagement. Diversification is now seen as essential for stability, ensuring Canadian resources remain valuable regardless of U.S. politics. Financial analysts and industry leaders agree that a broader customer base will help insulate Canada from future shocks and price fluctuations. This marks a new chapter. Canada is proactively pursuing global opportunities, no longer content to be dependent on a single partner. By embracing change and looking outward, Canada is charting a course toward a more secure and prosperous future for its energy sector and its people. At the heart of Canada's bold new energy strategy lies the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, a project that has become a symbol of both ambition and controversy. Stretching across rugged terrain and vast distances, this pipeline is more than just a feat of engineering. It represents a pivotal shift in how Canada approaches its role in the global energy market. The expansion links Alberta's rich oil fields directly to the Pacific coastline, creating a crucial corridor for Canadian crude. For the first time, this infrastructure allows oil to flow seamlessly from the heart of Canada's energy sector all the way to the bustling port of Vancouver, where it can be loaded onto tankers bound for Asia's rapidly growing markets. By providing a direct route to the Pacific, the pipeline effectively breaks the long-standing U.S. monopoly on Canadian oil exports. This new gateway not only diversifies Canada's customer base, but also strengthens its negotiating power on the world stage, ensuring that Canadian oil can compete in global markets. Since the pipeline's completion, a steady stream of tankers has begun transporting Canadian crude directly to Asian refineries. This shift is redrawing the map of global energy trade, as Canada's oil now travels thousands of kilometers across the Pacific, forging new economic ties and reducing reliance on traditional partners. Yet, the journey to completion was anything but smooth. The project sparked intense debate and faced fierce resistance from environmental organizations and Indigenous communities concerned about ecological risks and land rights. Despite these challenges, the government pressed forward, arguing that the pipeline's strategic importance outweighed the obstacles. Today, the Trans Mountain Pipeline stands as the backbone of Canada's energy diversification efforts. It is a tangible example of policy transformed into reality, enabling the country to chart a more independent and resilient economic future. Without this vital link, Canada's vast oil reserves would remain landlocked, and the dream of reaching lucrative Asian markets would be out of reach, leaving the nation dependent on a single export route. The Trans Mountain Pipeline is more than just infrastructure. It is Canada's ticket to a more independent, globally connected future, one where the country's resources can reach new shores and new opportunities. The US has shocked its closest ally by announcing a 25% tariff on Canadian crude oil. This move, rooted in America First policies, aims to protect US producers, but threatens decades of economic integration. Canada has vowed to retaliate, setting the stage for a damaging trade war. The tariff risks destabilizing both economies, disrupting businesses that rely on smooth cross-border trade. It's not just an economic maneuver, it's a political statement, signaling that no alliance is safe from US protectionism. Canada is now accelerating its push to diversify, seeking new global partners. Ironically, the US move may weaken its own alliances and reshape North American geopolitics. The 25% tariff on Canadian oil will hit American consumers hard, raising gas prices and increasing costs for businesses. US refineries, built to process Canadian crude, will see profits shrink and may face job losses. To compensate, they'll need to import from less stable countries, increasing geopolitical risks. A trade war could escalate, with Canada targeting US exports in retaliation. The result: higher costs, disrupted supply chains, and economic pain on both sides of the border. Protectionist policies meant to help could end up hurting the US economy most. As the US and Canada clash, China stands to benefit. With Canada seeking new buyers, Chinese refineries can purchase discounted Canadian crude, boosting their competitiveness. The savings fuel China's push to dominate the electric vehicle market, as profits from cheap oil are reinvested in green tech. Meanwhile, US industries face higher costs and supply chain disruptions. The tariff, intended to protect American interests, could actually accelerate China's lead in EVs and green technology. By driving a wedge between allies, the US is giving China a strategic opening. This shift could reshape the global balance of power in energy and technology. The US-Canada trade dispute is part of a larger, volatile global trend. Canada's promise to retaliate could trigger a cycle of escalating tariffs, disrupting decades-old supply chains and threatening jobs. There's growing fear that the US might target other partners, like the European Union, sparking a transatlantic trade war. Such conflicts would slow global growth and force countries to rethink alliances. The cooperative global trade system, built over 75 years, is at risk of unraveling. If confrontation continues, economic conflict could become the new normal. The stakes for the world economy have never been higher. With economic disaster looming, urgent talks are underway between the US, Canada, and Mexico. Diplomacy is the last hope to avoid mutual harm. Negotiators must balance political demands with the need to preserve North America's integrated economy. If talks fail, tariffs and retaliation will follow, hurting consumers and businesses immediately. Success would reassure global markets that disputes can be resolved peacefully. Failure would confirm fears of rising protectionism. The outcome will shape not just North American trade, but the future of the global economic order. Everything now hinges on the ability of diplomats to find common ground. The global oil market is entering a period of profound transformation. New pipelines are being built across continents, while threatened tariffs and shifting alliances have thrown the industry into a state of deep uncertainty. The landscape is no longer predictable, as countries and corporations alike scramble to adapt to rapidly changing circumstances. Every new infrastructure project, Every political announcement and every trade negotiation now has the potential to send shockwaves through the market, making it more volatile than ever before. Canada's newfound ability to ship oil directly to Asia is a true game changer. This development not only increases global competition, but also gives Canada more leverage in international negotiations. Asian markets, hungry for energy, now have more options, which could drive prices down and force traditional suppliers to rethink their strategies. For Canada, this means new opportunities for growth, but also new challenges as it navigates complex trade relationships and environmental concerns. Meanwhile, U.S. trade policy continues to add layers of instability. Sudden changes in tariffs, sanctions, and regulations make long-term planning extremely difficult for energy companies. Executives are forced to constantly reassess their strategies, balancing risk and reward in an environment where the rules can change overnight. This uncertainty ripples through the entire industry, affecting investments, jobs, and even consumer prices. Today, the oil market is driven as much by politics as by the classic forces of supply and demand. Political decisions, diplomatic tensions, and even tweets from world leaders can move prices as much as actual changes in production or consumption. The balance of power is constantly shifting, and every nation is trying to secure its own interests in this high-stakes game. In response, nations are hedging their bets and investing heavily in building more resilient and flexible supply chains. They are diversifying their sources of oil, developing alternative routes, and stockpiling reserves to guard against future disruptions. The goal is to ensure energy security in a world where old certainties no longer apply. Looking ahead, the future could bring a fragmented, fiercely competitive energy landscape, with countries and companies vying for advantage. Alternatively, if diplomacy and cooperation prevail, we might see the emergence of a new equilibrium, one that balances national interests with global stability. The outcome remains uncertain, and much will depend on the choices made by leaders today. One thing, however, is clear. The old order that once governed the global oil market is gone. The familiar patterns and alliances of the past have given way to a new era of unpredictability and change. The decisions being made today by governments, corporations, and consumers will shape not just the flow of oil, but the very distribution of energy and economic power for years, even decades to come. The future of the global oil market is being written right now. The oil market turmoil is fueling the race for electric vehicle dominance. U.S. tariffs make oil pricier for American industries, while China gains access to cheaper Canadian crude. Profits from oil are reinvested in China's EV and battery sectors, accelerating its green revolution. Meanwhile, U.S. and European automakers face higher costs, squeezing their ability to compete. A single tariff can trigger global shifts, linking oil politics to the future of transportation. The real contest is over who will lead the transition away from oil. Today's trade tensions could decide who wins the economy of tomorrow.